Welcome back, guys. It's Blackjack again, coming at you with episode 3 of our walkthrough, playthrough, our dive into MTG Arena. So, as you know from our last couple episodes, we talked about playing Mono Blue. That's what we were going to work towards. That's what we thought was probably the best deck in Standard. And lo and behold, if you watch the Mythic Championship, it was the best. It had quite a few copies in the top 8, and it also won the Mythic Championship. So, what does that mean for us? Well, it means the correct choice is what we made, number one. And number two, we now have to consider more than ever playing against the mirror. So, what I mean by that is our card choices have to be set up for the mirror and in order to counter the mirror. We have to constantly be thinking about if we're playing against the same deck as ours, what cards are we most interested in having? So the biggest thing for us is Tempest Djinn is obviously the best card in this deck, and it may be a card worth mulliganing to in the mirror because it's so important to have, it's so important to get down first, and it's so important to protect. What else do we have? Chart a Course. This is an interesting one. I made cuts on Chart a Course because it's no longer so much about card advantage in the mirror as it is about protecting your best threat on the board. So when you used to play against Izzet Drakes and you used to play against Sultai and things like that, it was important that against Hydroid Krasis decks and of such, we are keeping up by charting a course every time we can and using Curious Obsession to constantly be occurring cards in order to interact and not fall behind these decks. But now that we're going to be playing against the mirror, it's extremely important that we get down a creature like the Mander or the Tempest, and then maintain control of the board with that creature and protect that creature. So that's why I've made some cuts on Chart a Course. I've gone down to 2 copies. Spell Pierce is still great interaction in the mirror or otherwise. It's just a great counterspell overall. And then we're keeping all of the creatures, of course. This deck doesn't have a lot of ways to win the game other than the Mander or the Djinn getting down and being protected for you to go for the kill. As you can see, dive down on playing 3 copies. I still want to protect my creatures while they're on the board. We can take a look at the sideboard here in a second, but I'll go ahead and let you take a look at the list one last time. There's not much different that you're going to find, just a few considerations based on what's important and what's popular right now. Of course, we're going to keep Wizard's Retort because it's the best counterspell in the deck. Sideboard's interesting. So, we've come close to maxing out on copies of Entrancing Melody. As I said before, it's extremely important to maintain control of the board, even if that's only with one creature, the Djinn or the Mander. So, in the mirror, if we can Entrancing Melody one of their Djinns or one of their Petramanders, and then protect it, or protect the spell itself, it gives us a huge favorite, a huge advantage to win the game. So that's why we're playing 3 copies of this. And then a lot of this you've already seen before. Just in case against Sultai, we still have a few of the Surge Mares. We added an extra negate to normal sideboards, I would say, for this deck in order to continue to interact with the mirror. Essence Captures are in here. We still have Disdainful Strokes in case we play against other decks. Another Chart a Course in case we play against mid-range decks that go a little bit longer. And then we've gone up on copies of Exclusion Mage just because, again, this deck is called a tempo deck. What that means is you get a creature down, you protect it, you tempo your way through the game by using that one creature to get the kill. Playing Creature Bounce instead of Into the Royal effects are extremely important for the mirror because it's much harder for them to be interacted with by Negate and Spell Pierce and things of that type. So if we can tempo back our opponent and bounce a Djinn to their hand and get a creature down to start attacking, it's great for us. So, enough is enough. Let's play a game. As you can see, I've been continuing to do my dailies as often as I can. And I still have not touched ranked. I will be recording my ranked gameplay for sure, so we're just going to play a regular match right now. Just to kind of show you how the deck works, how it interacts with other decks, and to show you why it's so good and why it won the Mythic Championship. It's great at producing 1 or 2 creatures, protecting them with removal and permission spells, and then just crushing your opponent very quickly out of the game. And that's what you look for in Standard especially, is something that's powerful, and this one is especially great because it's cheap. Magic Online, you only have to craft, what, 3 Entrancing Melodies and 4 Djinns, so that's 7 rares. Everything else is uncommon and common. And I think in paper form, it might go up a little bit in price because of the Mythic Championship, but as of right now, it's only about $75. Apparently we're going to be waiting for the long haul here. You know what? Forget... Oh! I was going to go play ranked, but too bad. We got a match. Okay, let's take a look. What do you think? This hand's amazing. It has the best creature in our deck. It has some interaction early in the game, and it has a counter spell. There's no reason for us to mulligan this. We will play on. And we drew a 1-drop, which is fantastic. We're a long, long way from adapting it, but it is something that's going to make our opponent think throughout the game, and something they have to be worried about as we're getting our Djinns down. Fair enough, he killed it, and feels bad, man. We pulled another one right off the top. We'll get it down, pass the turn. Opponent has a couple of blue-red lands and a shock. Makes me think they're playing Izzet Drakes, and I believe we have a pretty good matchup against that deck. Tormenting Voice. I'm going to go ahead and counter this. I don't want to give my opponent a lot of time to set up and plan out what they're doing, and... Oh, wow. Alright. As I said, I don't want to give our opponent a lot of time to set up and plan, you know, the actions they're going to have down the road, the next turn, the turn after that. So, again, that's the perfect example of this being a tempo deck. We get a creature down, and we interact early to stop our opponent's game plan, and, you know, that's not going to happen normally, but there are times where you will just beat people by doing something like that. Now's the time. Let's play some ranked, see how it goes. This is the first official ranked set of games ever on this account. I'm excited. I believe I'm bronze tier 4 is at the lowest. Whatever the lowest is, that's what I am. We have a couple of 1-drops. We have early game interaction. We have Chart a Course for card draw to keep up through the mid game. We have 2 lands and a Djinn. I love this hand. I will keep. My opponent, I'm going to say right now, is 99% playing the mirror just by seeing that island. So we will see. We will pass the turn. And playing an Opt, again, makes me think they're playing the mirror. It's either that or Drake's at this point. If they play another island, it's for sure the mirror. A Swamp. Reassembling Skeletons. Okay. So this is something to consider, right, when you're playing ranked, such a low rank on MTG Arena, is there's a good chance you'll be playing against opponents who simply just don't have the cards and the decks that they truly want to have right now. So it kind of sucks, but it's something that we're going to have to work our way through in order to get to higher tier and more competitive opponents. And that's fine. Could still certainly make a game out of this. So one thing to think about is, as my opponent's taking their turn, I'm paying attention and I'm considering what they're doing, but I'm also considering what my plan is for my turn. Do I want to get a Djinn down, just slam it on 3 no matter what? I don't think I do, because there's a good chance that they're going to have interaction for it. So I may just get a 1-drop or a 2-drop down, and then save Djinn for 4, so that way I can play Djinn and save it with a Spell Pierce or a Dive Down. And I'm not in too big of a rush. I'm being attacked by 1/1s. I'm not super scared of that. So I think I'm just going to wait this one out. I will get this wide. Now I still have permission with a few of my interactive spells, and I can also Merfolk Trickster at the combat step in order to interact with them and possibly get a free trade. Mystic Archaeologist, pay 5, draw 2 cards. That's pretty good. Sure. You can have that. One thing about... Okay, hold on 1 second and I'll get to my point. I want to see... Okay, they're not. Very good. So we're going to get a free trade there. My opponent used their swamp to cast this, which means they're not going to be able to get the reassembling skeletons down this turn, which is great for us. Just like I said before, we're going to go to combat first in my previous episodes. No reason to tap out and show our opponent what our plan is through our turn. And now it is in fact time to get Big Daddy on the field and start dominating this board and end this game very, very quickly. So we're going to hold up Spell Pierce or Dive Down depending on how our opponent wants to interact with us. I don't imagine they're going to be able to. They could draw a card, but that would take all of their mana, so they wouldn't be able to interact with us through the rest of the game. They're tapping out for a kicked Blink of an Eye on main phase. This is why you do not cast instants at main phase. There's just no need for this. I will just go ahead and Spell Pierce. I'm going to save Dive Down. I think it might be a little bit better in this situation for us. Okay. We are going to Curious Obsession, our 1/1 unblockable. The reason that we don't put that on the Tempest Djinn is that another Curious Obsession. We'll take it. We're going to also put this on the Herald. And we are going to be drawing a lot of cards. The reason that we don't put either of those on the Djinn is, one, this one's unblockable, so I know for sure I'm going to get to draw cards off of it. But two, this is my biggest threat on the board, so there's no reason to load up onto my biggest threat on the board, as if there was a situation where it gets dealt with and killed, I'm going to get 3 for 1 because I'm going to lose my obsessions off of it, when I'd rather put it on a creature that's less likely to be bothered by the opponent because it's not as big of a threat as Tempest Djinn. So now instead of having one huge massive threat for them to deal with, I have 2 great threats, one that's drawing me 2 cards and is unblockable, and one that's flying and is going to get stronger as the game progresses. So it makes it very tough for my opponent to play something in order to interact with both of those creatures, and I could honestly consider not even diving down the interaction at this point, because at least I'm going to have one creature that's great. Though, I'm still going to do this, because this would still be a 2 for 1 because I'd be losing the Curious Obsessions. But again, this is exactly what I meant. This is interaction, our opponent wasn't ready for it, and we're just going to be dominating the board and kind of taking over here. Opponent's going to take the trade, and we are more than fine with that. We're going to put our opponent to 3, draw a couple cards. Yes, I will. Okay, we got a hard counter. I would say that is probably the game. There's not much point. We can look for a land. Ooh, another counter spell. No, put that to the bottom. We don't need that. Oh, we drew one anyway. This is game here. As you can see, most of our opponent's interaction has cost a lot of mana, so these wizard retorts are going to end the game and bring us into sideboarding. Oh. Uh. Traditional ranked must be where you actually sideboard. I see. Not a problem. Well, I'll say I suppose that's a great place for us to end. Maybe I'll show you guys opening up a sweet, sweet pack. Use my coins. Let's see what we get here. Thrash Threat. Truly incredible. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something about mono blue tempo and how to interact with an opposing mono blue tempo deck. I'm going to try to find an opponent or a friend who plays and have them play mono blue tempo for the next video so I can show you how to play the mirror match online, what to look for, what's important, as we already talked about, things like that. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys later.